Okay, so thank you very much. Welcome everybody. Welcome Marcelo. Marcelo is a full professor at Linnaeus University in Sweden. And we are happy to have him with us these days. He has been working on applying different technologies mainly in education to bring technology enhanced learning settings. And also he has applied interactive technology for of well-being and healthcare. So he will talk about from technology-driven to social-driven innovations, which is a very important aspect for us who develop technology. And thank you, Marcelo, for being here and for sharing your experience and takeaway messages that we hope that we will see. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Nice to be here. It's my first time. It's my first time at the university, but my third time in this town. I came some years ago as a tourist. The second time I came as with a colleague from the University of Vigo, just to see how things were here. Now I'm coming here on behalf of this common enterprise we have that is called a Uniwell. It's one of the European universities that have been appointed by the European Commission, and we have been around for 3.5 years. And last year, this university joined forces with us. So we are about 10 partners from France, from Spain, from Sweden, from Germany, Italy, Hungary, the UK. Birmingham is a member, and one affiliated university from Ukraine. And interestingly, the Commission asked us to bring another associated university. There were conversations with the University of Pristina in Kosovo, but interesting enough, Spain, and especially the government of Spain, denied Kosovo to join these forces. As you can withdraw your own conclusions about the political background of that decision. So just I bring it as a curiosity. I mean, you didn't get it. The point is that if Spain will recognize Kosovo, so they will need to recognize Catalonia as an independent. So they are avoiding to have that, but at the same time, they're having them in a coalition for the government. But that's a topic for another discussion. So that's a nice part of. Okay, but thank you, Alejandro, for introducing me. Marcelo Milrad is my name. I was born in Buenos Aires, so I speak fluently Spanish, but having in mind that not everyone speaks Spanish here, so we will have this conversation and this presentation in English. I work as a professor in the field of media technology at the Department of Computer Science and Media Technology at the Faculty of Engineering in Sweden. My background is very technical, starting from an engineering degree in telecommunications and computer engineering, not computer science. And then I switched to the more soft side, taking a master's in human-computer interaction and AI, and then I did my PhD in system dynamic simulations. And I did each one of them in different countries. My engineering degree is from Israel, my master is from Sweden, my PhD is from Norway. And as part of different schemes of Fulbright and similar, I have been at the University of Colorado in Boulder, part-time in Japan. So I have a wide range of experiences. And the title of this presentation for someone that comes from the field of technology is how we should take into consideration the social aspects of innovation and not just that everything should be driven by technology. So this message is built not just on experience in developing technology, but also working with a number of stakeholders coming from different backgrounds, end users, decision makers, experts in other fields. So that's a little bit, it's not a cookbook about how you should do, but it's more sharing experiences and also having in mind a little bit social implications in the current era of that we are living as citizens, having in mind fake news, uncertainty. So I'm trying to bring these aspects together that I think, as someone working in the field of academics, we have some certain responsibility. So that's a little bit the context. And feel free, since we are quite a personalized audience, so feel free to pose questions and to stop me whenever you feel. So a little bit the agenda, and I start already. What's the rationale of this talk? This will be, and I will give a little bit, and maybe it could feel a little bit repetitive, but there is a meaning about why I'm doing this digital transformation, and it's a little bit a retrospective view, because this is not a new process of, has been in the last year the hype of calling this digital transformation, but this is not so new. And I will share with you 3 or 4 samples of projects that we are conducting, so to see things in which we overlap. One of the objectives of my visit here is also to start to explore ways to collaborate. And again, I don't represent just myself. I represent the entire environment similar to the center. A little bit some reflections about recent developments and challenges, and questions and constructive dialogue. So that's a little bit, and I understand we will have until 11:15, and then we have some 15 minutes for questions. Just to give a little bit background about what Sweden is, and Sweden is a little bit knowledge nation that has been around for the last 150 years, building on engineering and technology innovation. Previously has been a quite poor country. Just to give some numbers, I like to talk with facts and evidence. Between 1880 and 1930, a third of the population of Sweden emigrated to the United States because poorness and hunger. So similar to what happened with Ireland. So it's from the 5 million people that live in Sweden 150 years ago, 1.5 million, they moved to the US. And not, if you go to a city like St. Paul in Minnesota, 70% of the population, they have or Norwegian or Swedish roots. So, and you may see some of the brands that you may know. Ericsson has been around for 140 years. Volvo, that is not the car company. The car company is just a small subsidiary, but Volvo is a big corporation with a lot of industrial development, but they put a lot of money on research. SKF, does someone know what it is? It's bearing wheels, whatever mechanism you have in. IKEA, you know, Spotify. Skype was originated and created in Sweden, then was bought by Microsoft. So, and Tetra Pak. So that this is just a sample. This is a very important part of the success of, or whatever you want to call it, success or survival of small country as Sweden, with not even 11 million people, but plenty of multinational companies. That's to invest a lot on research. The country itself defines as a knowledge nation, and the goal is that more than 50% of the population should have an academic degree. So it's just as a background. And then we have, like in the UK, like in Spain, we have very old universities like Uppsala or Lund that are from the 14th century. But then we have many universities like us that were 50 years old. And this is a little bit short about who we are. It's Linnaeus University. We are located in the very south of Sweden. Here is one campus. The other one is on the Baltic Sea. And have in mind that in terms of European dimension, Sweden is quite long. From where we live to Venice is shorter than from here to the north of Sweden. So it's from here to here is almost 1,900 kilometers. So my hub always to travel abroad is Copenhagen, not Stockholm, because otherwise I need to go 500 kilometers north and then to go back again. So it's not so efficient. So we have about 40,000 students, and doesn't mean that all these students are full-time. We serve a lot of rural population that, and because it's Sweden welfare, many people at the age of 35, 40, they say, okay, I'm tired of being a hairdresser, or I don't want to work anymore as an operator in a factory. Suddenly they have the chance to take a 5 years degree and then become a teacher. And it's for free if you're European, and on the top of that you get paid. So it's a quite unique constellation. So, and as I was telling Alejandro when we ate lunch yesterday, for a long time we have been focused on distance, and more than 30% of our students are online or in mixed models of education. So with the benefits and drawbacks of that. So we are quite international, and this is the motto of the university. We promote curiosity, creativity, and companionship. This is in the spirit of Carl von Linnaeus. You that you have a little bit of background in chemistry, you may know who this person was. Some of you do you know who Linnaeus was? Or in Spanish, Linneo, Carlos. Okay, but it's coming in the next slide just to refresh your. And one important part, and maybe in the context of these slides will not be presented, but we have nominated several times as one of the greenest cities of Europe. So we have a pure water heating system for the entire water of the town that is with this size, like Santiago, maybe a few thousand more or less, but it runs on fossil-free energy. All rest of the forests are processed in a way that they create the heat for the entire city. In a city living in, being more than 3,200 kilometers from here, more, all our public buses are run on solar energy and biogas. And what this means biogas, so all the organic garbage disposal from homes is going to a local plant, and this produces biogas that is fed into the buses. So all local transportation is fossil-free. So just to give, and this has been around for many, many years. And who was this guy? This is one of the parents of modern ecology, Carl von Linnaeus. He was the one that created a piece in Latin called System Natura. He has put together facts about vegetation, plants, into a meaningful system, so you could claim that he was one of the founders of data science, because he took a lot of pieces of data, put them together in a taxonomy, and this has been later used in all scientific classification for animals, for medical knowledge. So, and he was quite smart at the time he lived. He was quite entrepreneurial in terms that he got funding from the kings of Sweden, he got funding from the kings of the Netherlands. So in that way, he could be able to have a group that was funded by that money, and then they were doing field trips to South Africa, to other parts of the world to be able to classify plants, and he was in itself a botanist and a physician. But for me, it's quite a nice example of a modern researcher that need to be actively very scientific, productive, but at the same time having funding to be able to carry out his work. And what is the connection to this issue of the title on social-driven innovation? These are just some sources to have in mind: human population growth. In not so many years from now, for instance, Nigeria, in terms of population, will be much bigger than the US. So if I ask randomly how many inhabitants live in Bangladesh, just as a question, how many do you think? Almost 180. So we have this misconception that Europe with 600 million people is, but if you put together Bangladesh, Indonesia, and Pakistan, is game over for Europe. Just this is just to have this in mind, because I will end with some slides connected to robotics and healthcare, showing like how demographics in Europe is forcing us, like it happened in Japan, to think about novel solutions to solve some problems. But having this in mind, and of course, all this Sunday morning church sermon is always there, these sustainable goals from the United Nations. You can think whatever you want about it, but something that we should have in mind. And these are things that are quite in the background as we talk, this type of challenges, and why I bring in this slide with these images, because most of these things are now countable. So we have data, information, and even streaming data about this type of phenomenon. I mean, climate change, no doubt. This issue, I mean, we know at every given moment today that we have 170 million people on the move as refugees, something that is bigger than the size of Germany, Spain, and the Netherlands together. So it's quite something that creates a lot of challenges. The issue of healthcare for all. So I brought this slide in the sense of this is data that is streaming data that could be quantified and needs to be analyzed and monitored. So this is the context of the social need. And I mean, in terms of innovation, I mean, there is something that is quite famous, at least in the Nordic countries or in Northern Europe, that is the Swedish meatballs. I don't know if you've ever been to IKEA. So maybe you tried them. So, and this is the first question of the quiz. The one that wins will get an iPhone, sponsored by one of the projects from Alejandro. So this is the first question. Are the Swedish meatballs a discovery or an innovation? What do you think? Innovation. Okay. Because this, at least for the last 2 centuries, this is something that has been characteristic for Sweden, these Swedish meatballs. Doesn't differ much from what you could eat here called albondiga, but this. There are some components, you see. Here is a sauce that is made by a forest fruit called lingonberry. So but actually the Swedish meatballs have nothing to do with the discovery. Many Swedish people could be totally frustrated. Say, but this is the Twitter channel from the Swedish government making very clear that in the 18th century, one of the kings of Sweden went to visit by horse at the time to Istanbul, and he liked the traditional minced meatballs with mint that you have in Turkey, and they brought them to Sweden, and we say, let's stick to the facts. So in that sense, the Swedish meatballs are Turkish-inspired, but what is the issue of innovation here? You have this product, then you bring some channel of diffusion, like is IKEA. And interesting, IKEA started as a furniture company, but even today it has IKEA Foods. So whenever you go to IKEA store, you can buy this. So this is a kind of scaling up global innovation, because it has this Turkish-inspired, they have some components that bring some added value that is different to the original product. That is lingonberries, this mashed potato with brown sauce, Maybe this is the brown sausage English inspired, you never know. So this is just as a kind of teasing aspect of what is the discovery of innovation, or what is innovation. So there are models to talk about this. And you may be familiar with the difference between invention and innovation. Here, this is more process and service oriented, and it could be done many times. And you have different approaches to incremental innovation, radical innovation, diffusion of innovation. So there are interesting ideas about that. And in this context, I don't know how many of you have heard about this Metcalfe law. That for some network-based systems, the added value of a product increases with the number of people using it. So, and if you put it into the context of some of the topics here, working AR, VR, and we're working with these technologies, and even in one of the recent projects we got a grant from the European Commission, they called that emerging technologies. I've been working with AR already in 2007, so how something that is already 17 years old could be emergent. So, and this comes a question about the network-based systems and the added value of the product. I mean, we worked already in 2007 with AR. Why do you think that AR was in the decline, but suddenly in 2010 started to excel again? Some thoughts about that? Yeah, exactly. So one of the interesting applications was created in 2008, in which you have AR and geopositioning. So you can even withdraw data from Wikipedia using Wikipedia's GPS API. But it was a standalone. Suddenly Samsung discovered that it's possible to integrate it. They closed a bundle and they put that application as part of the set of applications. And suddenly, when you have millions of users trying out things, and this is a little bit the first message of how we should work scaling up in what we do, not reaching millions because we do research, but how we should try to scale up and going beyond the 5 to 7 users according to the Nielsen's heuristic for evaluation. And you may see that the telephone is a very interesting example. I mean, originally from the end of the 18th century, the basic functionality of the phones that are still around is to transfer analog signal over a channel to another point. That functionality still is around, but in a mobile phone, you have many added values and services that they were not conceived, but the foundations are still there. So, and some assumptions and propositions is like, again, we have nothing to discuss about that. Digital technologies, including this set of technologies, have changed and are changing the way we do things. This is nothing to argue. And what we can claim also that these innovations are growing exponentially. And social-driven innovation is an approach for the design and supporting different systems that they are enhanced by these technologies, with the idea on how to create an added value for its users in relation to specific societal challenges. So these are some assumptions. And another point is that we're dealing constantly with this type of challenges that I define, or at least I present some of them. There are many more. And uncertainty, and for instance, situations like climate change, COVID. I mean, we were discussing yesterday with Nelly during lunch about how suddenly in Spain, during COVID, the situation changed radically in terms of the way you teach and learn, and then came back again to some new phases, but there are so these circumstances that need to make us to rethink how we should conduct both design, research, evaluation of this type of technologies. And one of the challenges, I think, as researchers, having in mind more the ethical and social impact of what we should do, is which are the main challenges that are coming here to take advantage of these possibilities. And, I'm happy to hear in many of the projects that you have here that there are some very well defined, driven challenges that are coming from society, like you told me now before the start, how to support patients that are recovering from chronic diseases, from cancer using VR, how to improve understanding. So I'm not saying that we should not have still the scientific curiosity to define the own problems that we believe are important for us, but should have some background in society. Just to give some very brief examples, I mean, I don't know how many of you, in your childhood, they used to have, not many, but at least a few here, used to have this end of the 90s with the kind of digital Walkman, because the idea of Walkman already came 40 years ago, but was analog, to this platform-based digital streaming. So it's not only that have changed the way we consume, but it's also have changed the way music is produced, is distributed, everything. So, and if you see very simple, what was the point of departure here, and the point of departure here, what can you see? What is a major shift? I'm not talking about technology, I'm talking about process. I mean, from listening to a record at home or on a public space to this type of listening. What is the major shift? What can you see? More accessibility is one aspect. And what about the social aspects? I want to connect here because it's a repetitive pattern. Here is more private or in-house consumption, and here is more social consumption, but driven by data, because you have recommender systems, you have patterns, you have profile, you have personalization, and you have even different business models on how music is produced, distributed, and the revenues. So it's a totally transformation of processes, but not just from listening to analog music to just digital. So it's then if you look, this is a nice old theater in Buenos Aires that has been transformed to a bookshop, and it's still around, has a stage where you can listen to music. But this is the way that book consumption started to look like more than 20 years ago with the launch of Amazon and this idea of long tail. Similar here, the idea of recommender systems or collaborative filtering comes from here and from the predecessors of what used to be blockbusters and then became Netflix again. Algorithms, so another form of consumption. This is a quite well-known movie theater in Madrid. I don't know how many of you. Here is the way we consume. So you see a different pattern independent of media about how things have been transformed. And you see here the main idea was to socialize around the event with the content. Here we socialize but being on our own. I don't know how many of you know an author from the MIT called Sherry Turkle, that she's a professor in the sociology of technology, and she wrote a book called, already 15 years ago, Alone Together, that is a paradigm of the controversy of being online all the time, but at the same time, the illusion that we are sharing things leads to people being more alone. I mean, this is more philosophical, let's say, but this is what I'm trying to show here. Even the way we travel is the same, but when it comes to education, and I want to focus because it's a little bit some of the projects I'm going to show. the pattern could be, we could claim that the pattern is similar, but it's not that way. This is a picture that was generated in 1903 in France, in Paris, and here is written, the school in the year 2000. And here is when electricity started to become a commodity, so that it would become useful for everyone. And you see the teacher here, and I don't know how many of you know the term in Latin, tabula rasa. You know, so what does it mean?
It means we start from the beginning
with empty knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah, that was an approach coming from Latin, but used in pedagogy, that your brain is empty and the goal is to fill it in with knowledge that someone that is more knowledgeable than you will impart you. So you see, here is a new technology at that time. It should bring some kind of innovation, but still the idea is, okay, let's feed people. Again, this was a metaphor, of course, but still it shows quite a lot about how people conceive technology for the sake of intellectual growth. This is another one, and everyone is associated with a kind of pedagogical approach. This is Tomorrow's Classroom, is from 1923, this book, and it's when radio became a little bit technology, and I'm talking about FM, I'm talking about AM radio. You see, for the price 25 cents. Radio programs you can claim, okay, so there's some kind of distance education here. And interestingly, at that time, was this approach of behaviorism, and one of the Western representatives for that approach was Skinner. It was and was talking about teaching machines. And in the other front, in Russia, you have someone called Pavlov doing conductivism. But these people, they believe that by giving a stimulus, you get some response, and that's the way we learn. You see, this is the approach that was taken at that time. This is another interesting, is from Caltech in 1956. Schottky, that was working there, got the Nobel Prize in Physics for the transistor. Suddenly you see, special machines will be geared for each individual student, blah, 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 in 56, already 68 years ago. And then you come to the mainframes in Japan. This is from the NEC Corporation. See, every happy kid. Everyone in the classroom, but it's hard to know where the teacher is. This is a Japanese approach at that time, again, end of the 60s. Maybe we need to... Yes. Okay, thank you.
So you can move a bit more freely.
Okay. And this is at the time I was living in the United States, and this was a special issue of Business Week, and was supported by many corporations like Cisco, Ericsson, Nokia, about the future of learning with technologies. You see a little bit. And this is almost 20 years ago, and look at the vision from a decade. But in a decade from now, different districts take full advantage of emerging learning technologies. Today, in 2024 in Sweden, the Minister of Education is promoting to ban digital technologies because the negative, or the non-measurable effect that they have brought to the classrooms, and they are promoting going back to not just digital technologies but also analog materials, so people can improve the reading and writing skills. We could discuss endless about this, but I'm talking about these patterns. So you see that now with the emerging of AI to solve all human problems, this is nothing new. I mean, that's my message here, so that we need to do some short contemporary history to understand that these things has been happening for a while. And then these are images from more than 100 years ago. This is a classroom. A few years ago, I was in a trip visit in Argentina. This is a class in psychology. See, we're talking about technology. I mean, I'm not saying that we should abolish physical encounters, but there is not so much change. And on the top of that, you have these MOOCs, or this massive online. So I just wanted to put the context, because this could apply to a little bit healthcare, how we use technologies to facilitate public communication between citizens and organizations. So any reflections or any questions until now? Because this is just setting the stage for the talk. And then again, trying to put on the context of what I start talking at the beginning. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this publication. It comes once a year. It's by this Meltwater Foundation, and they produce a nice report that is called We Are Social, and they describe how every year the planet moves when it comes to population, relation to technology, and many other metrics. So you see, this is from this year, January. This is the population. You see, quite interesting. Well, this is just data. Sorry. So you see 8 billion people, more or less. Maybe now we are more. But here comes my question. It's the second question of the quiz. Given this fact, how many people do you think they do not have access to drinking water on a global basis? Give an educated guess. Doesn't need to be right or wrong. But okay, you are quite pessimistic. But this is a quote, like 2 billion people that don't have access to drinking water. So it's quite alarming. If we compare what is coming next as a piece of information, that is how many people they have access to internet and mobile phones. So you see, there are 8 billion people, and almost 6 billion have a mobile phone, but 2 billion they don't have. So it's almost the amount of people that they don't have a mobile phone is the same amount of people that don't have water, or the other way around. So it's quite alarming, because you cannot survive without the water, but you can survive without having a mobile phone. So it's just, again, I'm not saying, I'm just sharing data. You can withdraw your own conclusion. And if we go, this is what I wanted to show in all these slides, that we are going through a process that is not any more technology-driven, but is data-driven and process-oriented. And I don't know if from the field in which you're coming or the work you're conducting, you agree with that. I mean, some of you have been around for more than 5 years, so you may see this. Some younger not. So, and this brings all this cloud of concepts about data, learning, what is knowledge, and bringing this idea of different technologies that can be utilized, not only in the context of learning that I'm focusing now, but also in other domains. We have from neuromarketing with predictive analytics for consumer patterns, to machine learning, to visual analytics. So it's a quite range of both technologies and techniques that can allow you to deal with data in totally novel ways. And the challenge to me is not the techniques and algorithms that are behind, but in which way you can communicate this to the mass audience, so people can take more well-informed decisions. Because otherwise, I think But if we don't communicate to the public audience, we are missing the point, because still we are making science a little bit elitistic. So, emerging approaches are things like that. I mean, VR, AR, 360-degree videos. I'm putting this just in the context of, and I was happy yesterday to discover that some of people here are working on the interplay of this combined with data science. But what is the challenge is all this perpetual change. Things are changing so fast that it's hard to know what is steady, what could be trusted, what is, even from the point of view of the technology, what is expandable, what is extensible. If you develop systems that are relying on APIs that are owed by a few corporations, that they change, how you can adapt that your systems are still reliable. So there are quite interesting challenges. And this is a nice paper. If you didn't see this paper before, and this is written by a professor in computer science that brings this paradigm. This is the communications of the ACM, that why computing belongs within the social science, because these changes of many sciences are taken by the introduction of different techniques that are associated with computation. So it's not a must read, but it's recommended, because it can give you a little bit some arguments on how to talk with people from other disciplines, so that we cannot work anymore independently. We need to collaborate cross-disciplinary to tackle some of these challenges. And this is some of the definitions of what digital transformations is, and the interesting part is not just tackling the change of technology, but also the way both organization and behavioral aspects of something takes place. And in that context, at the university in which I work, 4 years ago, the Vice Chancellor, and is connected to some ongoing efforts from the Swedish Research Council, we should focus on how to conduct research and education to tackle some of the challenges that our society is facing. So we have created something that is not called Center of Excellence, but is called Knowledge Environments. So our university has 7 of those. I'm leading one of them, called Digital Transformations. And the idea is how you can bring people from different disciplines, not within the same faculty, but cross faculties, to work together to tackle some of these challenges. And this is a little bit what we are doing, that we are working together with businesses and the public sector to explore different challenges within the domain of digital transformations, to try to identify which are the challenges that will be of common interest. And we are working in different dimensions of levels of seed funding, that there are small projects, long-term funding, that there are maybe projects related to PhD students, working with one or more professors, postdocs, or other type of more industrial oriented. So I think you will identify yourself at the center working in this type of settings. And the idea is to work collaboratively, and there is a term in English called collaborative construction of knowledge. So the idea is that we work together with companies and with organizations and students to do that. And in that view, our points of departure, or viewpoints, are more than one, and they could be complementary. Could be, the one is just digitalization, just as enabling technologies. Depends if you come from the US or the UK, what term you use. So this is more like the engineering part. Okay, you have technologies you could use. The other one is more digital transformation as a process underway. In Sweden, you have it in the UK. I don't think you have similar paths of studies in Spain, but maybe you have something called Informática de Gestión. Okay, so it's maybe that. So we have something in Sweden called social informatics. You have it in the UK also. That is a study of how organizations and people, they change patterns when they work with computer systems, and this is a long tradition in Sweden since the end of the 60s. And this is more process-oriented. Some of these units could be part of the School of Business in what they call business informatics. In London, you have it in the London School of Economics. Then you have a complementary perspective that is digital transformation as a phenomenon, an object of study. This is more social-technical studies. This is more people both in sociology and even in technology. This is another view, the co-construction of knowledge, dissemination, and more this idea of ecosystem. This is more social impact. This is a little bit what David was trying to talk yesterday at the end of our conversation. This is more like the epistemological view, which is enough with the research methods we're using today, based on all paradigms, to see whether what we're claiming is correct or not. Because I have my issues there. We talked yesterday in your case of chemistry and molecule binding. There are some theories to assess how people learn that have been developed in totally other learning ecosystems. So I'm having in mind just maybe some multimodal, but they were between text, graphs, static. So maybe that approaches to how learning and cognitive processes take place, they are very different from the one you're exploring. So we may know to develop new theories about which are the high order thinking processes that are taking place there that may be different from what we knew from before. So you cannot do that on your own. You need to do that with people from neuroscience, from cognition, from technology. So this is another one is this digital transformation as disruptive technologies. So this is a little bit multiple views that allow us to bring people together, and it's also more a kind of stage to invite people from other disciplines to be able to have a conversation. And in that way we have organized ourselves. We have one research center that we work quite a lot with industry, and we have there like 25 or 30 industrial PhD students called Data Intensive Science and Applications. Then we have something called Information Institute, in which we put together some interdisciplinary master programs we have developed in the last 3 or 4 years. So we have one in digital health, digital learning, digital humanities. All of them are given online, part of them in English. This is in Swedish because the target group are healthcare personnel in the Swedish public sector, so they work in Swedish, so even if we have some courses of AI in English. But so this is a little bit also some implications about how this notion of digital transformation as a societal challenge could be driving the way our education is organized. And I'm not saying that it's an easy task. There are a lot of hinders and reluctance, because when you try to change the structure that have been around for a long time, that engineering belongs to engineering, social science belongs to social science, and then suddenly you have, like in this program, a master program that is owned by 3 faculties. So it's not so easy to cope, but at least we are trying. So this is a little bit some, at the meta level, I don't know if it makes clear in this slide, like how we're working in this way. So this this started like 5 years ago, this is 4 years ago, this is 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And in these two cases, we got money from a Swedish foundation, 200,000 euros, working together with companies for 2 years to develop how the content of these masters could look like. So they are not dictating us what we should teach, but we were having a dialogue, having in mind that what you will expect from people from graduates coming from these programs about the skills and knowledge they should have. So it's an alternative way to develop education. And still we are lucky enough in Sweden to have this type of foundations that they support this kind of innovation. And in terms of technologies, again, in some cases we work also developing new technologies, but it's not the main focus. And main focus could be defined here is more like advanced HCI, how we can take advantage of all these techniques and technologies to promote different research perspectives. And what I'm going to show now, okay, it's 4 different projects from a range of projects. And I have a few short videos of less than 1 minute to exemplify that. This is the one that has to do with environments for allowing people in the healthcare sector to train and learn in different ways. This is for catastrophe management or trauma management. So these are kind of exercises in which could be that you bring people in the intensive care unit and how to allow students to learn, or how you do a catastrophe management exercise in which you bring nurses, doctors, the military, the police. So we're using there different technologies like body embedded cameras, drones, 360 degrees cameras. We're not using VR because they are collective exercises that bring together a lot of people, so it will be quite cumbersome to have 80 nursing students going with VR headsets. So you will see another alternative. The second one is a project that is ongoing from the European program called Digital Europe, and a special key action called Emerging Technologies for the Future of Education and Training. Here we're looking at how to combine design thinking, that is an approach to design, that is the DT, with digital technology. So that's the reason that this DT square. So we're exploring how to combine design thinking with emerging technologies. Then we're working in the ideas of AI literacy and chatbots for supporting academic writing. Here we have some commonalities with the work that Alejandro is doing with social robots. And I'm going to be very briefly in the field of e-health, how we're working with ophthalmologists to do automatic classification of diseases in the eyes. So this is the first. Okay, sorry, I don't know where the sound is going again. example. I don't know if the concept was clear. I mean, we started first by doing a 3D modeling in a VR, but didn't seem to be so effective for this purpose. So by having long discussions with the people that are involved in training future nurses, because many of them, they are coming from the field. They are ambulance drivers, they are paramedics. So we came up with this concept. There is a lot of technology development because there are not players for web browsers that support 360 degrees video, so we need to develop our own plugin. But these things will come. This is the other project. This is called Design Thinking with Emerging Technologies. It's EU funded by UCRI, this unit that came up after Brexit in the UK to support collaboration with the EU. Now the UK is back on business and you are part of the Horizon program again. Not you, but... So this brings together people from Sweden, Greece, the Open University, UCL in London, Ghent in Belgium, Trinity College, and the National University of Science and Technology in Norway, to work together with this idea that we try to use emerging technologies to enhance the pedagogical value and the potential wide of design thinking. That is an approach originally coming from Stanford for product design. That is more than 50 years ago. It has been around in many settings, but not much used in educational settings. So we are trying to combine these two things, design thinking with digital technologies, to make people to promote what is called 21st century skills with this co-creation, blah, blah, blah. So what we had done is that we had already a set of tools that are web-based. This is a tool for playing and thinking about mathematics in both directions, graphical and manipulative mathematics with coding. Now what we do is also to allow a little bit what we discussed Alejandro yesterday, the idea of to co-create 3D objects that they can interact with the platform. Then we have another one for classifying things, another one for social technical simulations and working with virtual robots. What is the nice part of that? That you can work with a graphical interface, but also you can do programming. And in that way you introduce young people to programming with kind of block-based programming, but you bring some notions of what is computational thinking and how to solve problems. So it's not just at the layer of information layer, but you can also go and try to understand what is the underlying model behind. So everything is connected, it goes to a platform, and all these tools generate a lot of data with XAPI. So we do keep track of everything of the evolution of a product. Well, a product, I mean some outcome from these tools. And then we have a learning analytic dashboard that is configurable. And what does it mean? That teachers, they can put a view about what process or which aspects of what the students are doing can be visualized with this dashboard. And then it can be used. So we are exactly at half of the project. We have been working now during the spring on bringing teachers to do future workshops with us, so they could imagine, not to imagine, just they could start thinking about what does it mean to work with analytics, because many of them, they have no idea. I mean, I'm talking about teachers in Greece, in Belgium, in Sweden, in Norway, that they are teaching children between grade 7 to 9. They are quite skilled, but they never heard about what learning analytic or what dashboards are. And we are following that using these different phases of design thinking. If you never heard about them, they encompass this empathize, define, rapid prototyping, and we develop a framework about how to support the different processes with the different tools, and So that is part of the, and we are one of the 5 projects that have been granted funding from the European Commission 1.5 years ago in this domain of emerging technologies for and digital transformations for teaching and training. Tomorrow in Salamanca, that's the reason I'm here, we're having a conference in which the European Commission is promoting now to have what is called cluster projects. So all the 5 projects that have been granted, we're having a workshop to share our experiences in a conference in this field of intelligent systems. And until now, we have been experimenting in total, and in the new academic year that we start in September, we need to reach 2,000 students to give, and we're doing evaluations and all these things. I'm quite skeptic about the evaluation approach that is taken, but that's the way we wrote in the proposal when you work with so many partners. It's a lot of these pre and post tests and kind of cleaning, but honestly, I don't believe on that only. We have a lot of opportunities to do new explorations with when you have so much data to compare. And then another one is we're working with on the notion of AI literacy, and there I'm working together with 3 PhD students in which they are exploring different aspects of that. And I will show very clear with research questions what we mean, but you see this is the Misty social robot that is a cousin of the 4-hat robot that you have. That's a Swedish company. So we're working with teachers, with students, working a lot on co-design aspects, which type of applications or activities teachers could imagine working with social robots, and we implement that as part of the classroom activities. So this is some of the questions we have been exploring. See, some of them they are of more social science character, but it's important to know about those when you try to develop new approaches. So, and here we're looking at the connection between computational thinking and AI literacy, because this is also kind of misconception that suddenly everyone is an expert on AI and everyone should master AI, but there are some requirements from the point of view of the user about what we should know to be able to master AI instead of AI mastering you. So there is a clear connection between computational thinking and AI literacy. So this is some of the publications that are being produced in the last month as a response to these questions. This has been quite nice received. We have already many citations, and this is a little bit more about working for some months with teachers to see how they understand what is AI and what are their expectations. And then this is also a nice result of innovation project. We have this seed funding innovation as part of this environment called digital transformations. We have been working together with teachers in the field of sociology, students, with the university library, and with other stakeholders, and with the IT department on in which way you can conceptualize using generative AI to support students in courses that have to do with academic writing. At least in these programs, they are compulsory. From the first 30 ECTS credits, they have 15 are about those, and they're having quite some problems in the past. So there are 2 aspects, the technology and the pedagogical, and these are different stakeholders and the process in which we develop this application, which I will show you just in a short movie. And these are the questions. I mean, one is which are the concerns and expectations of students when you introduce generative AI for academic writing, and again, how their beliefs could guide the design of the tool. So I will show this small.
I thought about using ChatGPT in teaching, but I haven't really found a useful way.
It felt a bit of a hit over the head to have to deal with it now.
Students and teachers need to know about it, and they need to learn how to use this tool. We are very experimental about it. If it's useful, we will find out. If it's not, then we will find out as well.
We began by setting up a simple interface that gave students and teachers access to ChatGPT. This interface used the university access to ChatGPT, which meant we could give the privacy guarantees needed to use it in a teaching environment. In the second version, we introduced AI writing tutor prototype. It works with the students in a more sophisticated way. They can upload the text they are working on and discuss their text with the system. It can also provide detailed feedback on the text in terms of clarity, coherence, writing style, argument strength, and compliance with academic standards, such as referencing. This version of the app can remember conversations of up to 300 A4 pages long and can be tuned to pay attention to specific issues in the text.
It impressed me.
I thought it was quite a wonderful program, actually.
And after using it, I was really surprised. Clarity, grammar, coherence. Yeah, I think it's a great tool for that.
Instead of sort of emailing back and forth with teachers, save a lot of time doing that.
I kind of fell in love with it a little bit, I have to say.
She's a German professor, quite reluctant. So this is an example of
I thought about
I don't know if you got the idea, but this was initially just a large language model engine, but then we add some functionality. Even we train the model with some data about writing style, so as it goes, the machine learning model improves. So the interaction is in the way that students write the text, they upload the file, and then the chatbot provides some recommendations, so the students have the chance to improve it. And we are developing a dashboard so the students can keep track of things that have to change it. So it's not that they're putting just prompts and then they get back, but it's totally another different process. And we have now a final degree project in which one of the guys that was a developer is a student, but he's quite bright student. So as part of his bachelor thesis, he improved the reliability or he improved this idea of avoiding hallucinations by using another method called RAG. So it has been initially validated, but we'll try it out now in the coming semester about whether the quality of the feedback you get from the machine learning model is more stable in terms of reliability, because this is one of the challenges with these current models of large language models. So this is hallucination, creating things. So this is some reflections about what we learn. We published a paper recently in one ACM that describes all these efforts. If you want to have it, it is there. I mean, if you're interested, I can share the slides without the films, and you can have a look. All this is in the big umbrella about what does it mean, what it is AI literacy. And this brings together and this is something, a discussion on global basis. I mean, these are colleagues from Hong Kong that they have decided to develop already compulsory courses on AI literacy, both for teachers, for students, for parents. When they do things in Asia, they go the entire, and for administrators. This is one example. This is a little bit from Digital Promise, that is the kind of US AI institute supported by the NSF, started to bring about what does it mean, AI literacy, and these are some of the aspects that you work here at the center with, reliable AI ethics. And then is similar things that are going on the European level. I mean, there is a lot of discussion, but there's still a lack of an agreement that we understand things in the same way. And if you're interested, we have a Vimeo channel with more example of our projects. I mean, just to wrap up, things that we are need to deal with in terms of challenges, this validity, what is reliable, and how do you assess creativity and knowledge when people could generate content. So this is something that is challenging us about how to reframe, how to assess some processes. And one interesting challenge is to see AI also as augmented inclusion, because it could be that this type of technologies will leave people behind. And some challenges to deal with, I don't have time now to talk about the digital health part, but these things are, even if it's in Swedish, are very applicable to Spain, and I think even the situation here is worse. Here is the challenge to deal with in terms of demography and the growth of the elderly population and the little growth of the young populations. So by 2030, this is from the Swedish government, and it's from last year. So today we have like maybe 500,000 people, again, multiply by 4.2, and then you have the metrics for Spain. So in Sweden there are nowadays like 500,000 people that are older than 80, and then you have 700,000 people that are in this range, that maybe in 6 years from now, in 2030, some of them will enter the labor market. But the issue is that with the current demographics, in 2030, the amount of people in Sweden that will be older than 80 will be 1 million, so maybe 4.2 million here in Spain, while the amount of young people will be decreasing to half. So these people have some not so bad economical resources, the health situation is not bad at all, so who is going to provide services in terms of not healthcare, I'm talking about care services, just to support them, or maybe doing some gymnastics for the elderly, or some other things that we have no idea. So there is a major gap. We are closing the borders of immigration, so it's another topic. I don't want to enter into the politics, but this is a very clear problem that is well proven with data. So some of the challenges is what Japan has been doing for more than 20 years, that is how you provide this. And the reasons, I have been living in Japan, so in Japan there are other reasons that are more like, let's call it, the dislike of interacting with humans that they don't have a social Japanese background. So the elderly people in Japan, they rather than interact with robots than people that are not Japanese. So, and that's one of the reasons that 25 years ago the Japanese government gave Sony and other companies, you have a challenge. Think about how to develop robots, social robots that could interact with elderly people. Now we are seeing a similar trend, at least in Sweden. During COVID there came several solutions that make sense, but we have some contact with municipalities that have social pets for promoting social activity with the elderly, and just like a robot pet, like a dog or a cat. So people, they need to take care, so they have some company, they track some behavior. So these are challenges that we need to face. We don't know how to do it, but we cannot ignore them. And this is something interesting, that is a French guy that works at Harvard, but also the London School of Economics, that is talking about the other angles of this type of technologies. And the book is called The Power of Creative Destruction, and claims that whenever a new paradigm comes in terms of technology, it will kill the other one, but the process is going so fast that the social processes that are happening in terms of both wealth and innovation, they are hard to predict. So if you don't have anything to do in the summer, maybe just listen to this as an audiobook. And to me personally, and I've been working in the field of AI for a while, this is one of the big challenges I see, that is, what is the future of human communication mediated by AI? It's not so much about whether AI systems could be smarter, but rather than this one. And to me, it's not just the developing of systems that demonstrate some kind of intelligent behavior, but rather the risks of people adopting more mechanized and predictable ways of behavior that AI system used to have in the past. And what do I mean by that? Is that we see new facets of human behavior that we never experienced before, like drawing conclusions and taking new communication patterns, maybe based on fake news, or how you prepare people to defer what is real and what is not real. I mean, so, and these are moving away some fundamental values of humankind that we always had, that is affection, creativity, compassion, that they are becoming more and more. And there are clear indications now, especially after COVID, because it takes time, about that one of the major problems in society, at least in the Western culture, is young people's mental health. And if you go deeper, we don't have enough people in Europe to provide care for that target group. So I'm not bringing a pessimistic view, at the opposite, but we need to know which are the problems we're going to face. So I remember that I was here, I spent the COVID time in Spain, not so far from here, in Asturias. And I remember it was March 8th, is the Mental Health Day, the International Mental Health. And they were discussing the situation in Spain and the problems they have, like in everywhere in Europe, that the request for support for young people is incredible, and there are not enough professionals to provide it. So the rate of suicide among young people has increased. So I'm not an expert, just I care about what the influence of these things could be. And again, to summarize, in terms of approach, we try to bring this triple helix. It's nothing new, but we try to bring this civil society also into the picture, and this idea of co-creation and collaborative knowledge building. And again, this is, I think, one interesting point of departure, that one of the challenges to understand more which are the problems we're going to solve rather than just the methods we're going to use. So these are my coordinates, if you want. Hopefully this will be the first time of many to come that we will meet each other. And we will discuss after lunch with Alejandro, maybe organizing some event here next year so we can invite other Uniwell partners, and maybe doing some kind of combination of hands-on workshops and a publication or something may attract people. So this is a little bit more or less what I want to share with you. So time-wise, since we started a little bit later, we have a few more minutes, but I hope that there was some food for the soul. And if you have some questions, feel free to ask now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Well, we have said many different things. So I have one comment, because in my opinion, or the way that the classroom have evolved, it actually have changed, because even if it shows like having steel tables and so on, but this is now, in my opinion, more dynamic. And also the the traditional materials is true that they are ubiquitous. So printing is still very flexible because you can bring many different activities. But when it's about technology, somehow it needs to be also ubiquitous because it needs to scale up for the mass. So, for example, in VR, what I imagine is that we cannot be like in the picture when they were in the headphones, because we cannot be isolated from each other. But perhaps it's good for specialized activities that maybe they are not in the classroom, or maybe they are, I don't know. So, in my opinion, the many limitations are related to how the technology can be integrated into the educational settings. So I don't know which is your view about that. Or what?
More or less, I agree. One challenge also is that I think we have a misconception that we believe that everyone has the same point of departure in terms of knowledge and skills about what can we do and the affordances of technology. And I think this is a major challenge, is how to work with people in the public sector, with nurses or with doctors or with teachers, on what the technology could bring them as an added value, because otherwise they will see it as a hinder. And as long as you don't show that they could do with technology something that is impossible to do without technology, it will be meaningless. So, and this is a quite complex problem, because it's not just technological, it's not pedagogical, but it's organizational and it's financial. Because I don't know how does it work in Spain. In Sweden, for instance, both in the public sector in terms of healthcare and education, everything is public. It's very dynamic. So if you come to a school, each municipality gets a budget from the government, and then the money is divided and then goes to the principal, and it's the principal that decides and is responsible legally about the budget. So the teachers have the possibility to discuss and say, we want to buy this, but they need to have very informed decisions about how they should convince about what is the added value. And I believe we have not done a good work to show, because we work, for instance, with an organization that provides service to 150 schools in our region. And they have the equipment that they buy and they can borrow to the schools. And even there is a business model that when they borrow, they need to pay not for the equipment, but for the consulting, a little bit open source inspired. They need to pay for the consulting hours to learn how to use it. And I think we need to think more about this type of, there is some aspects of the lesson in chemistry in which we want to show bonding and molecules, and for that we can go to a particular session in a VR room or something in which you combine with a field trip, but this is quite complex to conceptualize. But as long as we will not come there, I think it's we need to institutionalize this type of innovations. And again, innovation between quotation marks, they are 30 years old. And because one of the challenges, I think, nowadays is not anymore to claim whether this is good, but it's the business model. Because if you buy an Oculus Quest, it costs, whatever, 500 euros today. Then you need to do a modeling, which is, how many times it will be used? If you tell a school, buy 4, because you have 400 students, you say 1 per 100. So, then it's 2,000. So how many times will be used? Well, it's better to buy books that are more. So this type of studies in which we need to bring other people in, more in economy and sustainability, or more, not sustainability, but more like service management. So you see, these are complex things. But I believe, like you, that we need to combine, we need to bring a balance between the physical and the digital, but in the context of how these things are going to be used. And that's the challenge.
Thank you for your presentation. I like it very much. And I have a question. A couple of years we heard about the development of virtual reality applications with Meta that promise the development of this kind of applications. But today, in my opinion, there is no more. There are few applications based on virtual reality. Most of them, in my opinion, are proofs and pilots of for demonstrating the use of virtual reality. What is your opinion about the barriers of the virtual reality in order to have, for instance, a killer application?
We were talking about yesterday about this notion of killer application. So if you work with patients with terminal diseases, please don't use that term. No, I mean, based on my experience now, a little bit trying to apply some wisdom between quotation marks. I think the challenge it comes to empower the users to develop things. I mean, what I see with teachers, and since we are forced in one of these European projects to work with schools, because this is one of the issues we're assessed, because we put in the key performance indicators. By the end of the project, we need to experiment, is that if teachers, they don't have the tools to empower them to express the pedagogical ideas into technology, it will not work. And what is missing in virtual reality is like having simple authoring tools for teachers without the need of using Unity or WebGL or whatever you want, because they don't have the skills. But building authoring tools for them to create content that could visualize, that will change the picture. But since there is no business model for that, companies are not going there. But if you look recently, the development, there are plenty of startups that doing a lot of money, at least in the Nordic countries, in Silicon Valley, that are creating authoring tools for teachers to create lesson plans together, but they have the possibility to not to do just prompt engineering, but something beyond that. And with the VR, I believe the same. I mean, if we could create simple authoring tools in which you have pre-prepared models of 3D objects, and the only thing that is missing is to put a path about how this should be run, and then you share that among teachers, then it will kick out, because otherwise no one have the time and the knowledge. So I don't know if this answer your. And I think this could be a kind of a pilot project to explore, okay, how a potential authoring tool for a VR authoring tool for teachers could look like. And it's very difficult to generalize, because for me, I mean, the main source of use should be in STEM, like in science, technology, in which you not want to visualize things that are hard to see.
Any other question?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I like the use of GPT-4 for the literacy, and I've just will ask for your opinion. What do you think is going to, or how do you think is going to impact this technology in the way we are studying right now, or we are teaching right now, and if this is going to not force, but to apply some kind of measures or some kind of move back to another analogical teaching, like we did in our in our study.
I think this is a major challenge, but not for the students, but for the institutions, because we need to reshape and to reconceptualize how we want to examine. Because, I mean, just to give you an example, in one of these master programs, that we give, the one in Digital Humanities. I'm teaching a course that is called Programming for Digital Humanities. This is at the master level. People that have maybe a bachelor in archaeology or in history, and it's given online, open. So we have even people that have PhD in history or theology that they want to learn. So we have been giving this course for 5 years, and last year we saw an incredible increase on the quality of the solutions to the exercise they got. And according to the law, we cannot change the type of examination in a new way if it's not at the way that is described in the syllabus of the course. So we didn't have any specification in the syllabus that there should be oral examination. So if we were doing that, because suddenly all of them, they became genius in programming, see, without knowing nothing, and they were using, you can create very nice piece of code in whatever large language model. So it was hard to, and even in the era in which we live, if we were telling that they were doing some kind of plagiarism, they will press charges against us for being abusing their trust, you see. So there are some legal boundaries that are completely insane. So for the next version of the course, I mean, we are going to migrate to another platform. We were using Teams, Replit Teams for Education. So we did some analytics on the response of the students in terms of how many, we saw, for instance, in one student that was an incredible solution, and the only interaction that was done with the IDE, you are familiar with Replit. It's a web-based platform for programming, Replit. So there is one that is called Replit Teams for Education, so we could collaborate with the students, we can fork, so in one case, we were like 400 lines of code, and you could see that it took 5 interactions with the system. So it was copy, paste, put some comments, and another one, it was more than 5,000 interactions with the system because it was doing debugging, so we could do some, but you know the amount of extra work it takes, and there are not such analytics built in the systems yet. So we're going to, unfortunately, this company, they decided to continue with the Replit, the platform, but not anymore for education. We're migrating to another platform called Code Grade, in which you could do even automatic assessment. And we are going to reshape the way we assess the course by promoting to use generative AI and coming up to analyze why you do this solution. And it will be more demanding for them. It's more demanding for us, but we need to change the way we assess because we are going maybe to reshape totally the syllabus in having as compulsory oral examinations because this is the best way to assess. And then you see, we're bringing with the technology to promote new ways, but we're going, I'm not saying that it's bad to have oral examination, but this is something that was not conceived anymore, was considered, oh, this is obsolete. I mean, oral examinations were when my mother, that she's a doctor, had 50 years ago, but no, I don't see any other way to, and it still is good because you could assess that.
Something very similar. Not oral examinations, but through.
So, and if you are interested, I could share with Alejandro. I was last year part of a workshop of the ACM, Special Interest Group on Computer Science Education, in which 2 guys from the US, even they wrote a book now about how to teach introductory computer science using generative AI, not the traditional way. So they have even some suggestions for techniques on what type of examples you could do. Because the worst thing we could do is just to say, okay, it's forbidden. Because the effect is totally the opposite. So feel free to use whatever you need. Trust me that the challenges I will give you, they will be harder than the traditional way. And I think this is the ultimate, I mean, my view of this type of, having working more than 20 years with AI in different dimensions, but in the range we are now, I think is the best because we can promote to come to a higher level of intellectuality that was not possible before. But for doing that, you need to have some basis. And this is what I think universities are missing. We need to reshape which are the bases that students need to be able to cope with it. Because I believe that even a program in software engineering 5 years from now will totally, you cannot imagine how it would look like, because there are some interesting frameworks in which you could put everything. I mean, from requirements engineering to deployment, an AI system is doing that in 5 hours. And this took maybe 8 months, 1 year to do before. And you cannot tell people, okay, you're out of the business, because still the human in the loop is required more than before. But we need to rethink. I mean, I'm still in favor that mathematics for me is a common language. Everyone should learn mathematics, even in someone that is learning philosophy or philosophy stuff, but sociology, because this is the kind of tools that allow you to understand what is going. When you put this as a black box and like esoteric, like hocus pocus, that's the worst. This is what happens when you have fake news. You have, I just put my personal opinion. You have like Boris Johnson. You have Donald Trump. You can people that manipulate whatever, and say, that's reality. So it's very dangerous. And the elections of the European Parliament is the most clear example. So I think we have a quite challenge for the universities about, and otherwise we will be extinguished, because someone else will come and take the, just for curiosity, last year I took a course myself in one of these platforms from Silicon Valley called Udacity. And they joined forces with Microsoft Azure, so they take micro credentials of 2 credits. If you take 15 credits, you are already, and if you pay, you are some kind of certified AI blah, blah, blah. You can get a job in the US because it's a lack of people. You study 2 courses and you can get a job for $100,000 a year. So what universities can do on that? So I mean, if you tell someone 20 years, you want to study 4 years of engineering, take loans, live like a rat, or take a course from home, and then the choice will be, so we need to rethink very clearly what is the added value that we're given as a university. So, but it's not so many people at the leadership that are, because we need to think totally how to reshape the way we operate. Otherwise, we will be out of business in 5 to 10 years. There's no doubt. Okay.
Any other question from the audience? No? Okay, so I think we can leave it here and then move on for a coffee. Okay, for a break. Thank you very much.
Thank you.